There comes a point where the fight is not strength, but resistance, where the pain is not in the wound, but in the refusal to release it. The Stoics taught that not all suffering is necessary. Some of it is chosen, rehearsed, recycled. We hold on to what has passed. We grip tightly to what has gone. And in doing so, we wound ourselves twice. Once from the event and once from the attachment. This video is about the art of letting go, not passively, not by numbing or forgetting, but by seeing clearly, accepting deeply, and returning our focus to where our power actually resides. This is a Stoic discipline, not a sentimental one. It is not easy, but it is essential. Epictetus reminds us, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your response. And that response can either be a chain or a key. In this video, we explore how to let go, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. How to release what we cannot control. How to make peace with what was and move with grace into what is. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Trap of Attachment. Why do we suffer? Not because the world hurts us, but because we expect it not to. The Stoic does not believe the world owes them peace, fairness, or permanence. Instead, they expect the storm. They prepare their soul for the shifting winds. Attachment is the root of repeated pain. We cling to roles, outcomes, identities, timelines. We imagine life must unfold a certain way, and when it doesn't, we do not adapt. We resist. We tell ourselves it shouldn't be this way, but it is. And the longer we deny it, the longer we remain prisoners of what no longer exists. The Stoic sees clearly, nothing is promised. No relationship, no possession, no dream is guaranteed. Everything we hold is at best temporarily entrusted to us by the hands of fate. To believe otherwise is to invite heartache. So the Stoic practices holding things lightly, not out of fear or detachment, but out of profound understanding. They know that clinging transforms love into fear, because now you are terrified of losing. It turns plans into pressure, because now they must succeed for your happiness to survive. So the Stoic loves fully, but without ownership. They engage with life wholeheartedly, but without the illusion of permanence. They give their heart generously, yet do not tether their emotional balance to the continued presence of anything or anyone. They plan with care and precision, but always with a hidden clause, if fate allows. Their serenity does not come from the control of outcomes, but from the ability to adapt gracefully to whatever unfolds. This way of living cultivates a quiet, unshakable power. It makes the Stoic both deeply rooted and endlessly flexible. They are not blown over by change, because they have not staked their peace on things remaining the same. They are anchored not in the shifting tides of circumstance, but in the clarity of their own mind, and so they do not rage at the wheel of fortune when it turns. They knew it would. They do not protest when fate rearranges the pieces. They expected it to. Their goal is not to freeze time or secure comfort, but to stand upright in every season of life. They balance not because the world is steady, but because they are. This is often misunderstood. To hold loosely is not to care less. To remain calm is not to withdraw. The Stoic is not cold. They are committed. But their commitment is inward-facing. They are committed to virtue, to wisdom, to reason, not to the illusions of control. They refuse to link their joy to the unpredictable or their worth to the approval of others. To attach one's peace to something outside of oneself is to build a house on sand. When the storm comes, and it always comes, such a house falls. But the Stoic builds differently. They build within. When peace is anchored to character, to effort, to values, no storm can take it away. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." It is a principle of radical emotional responsibility. When something good enters your life, enjoy it. Be present with it. celebrate it, but do not wrap your identity around it. Do not make your soul hostage to its continuation. When it leaves, as all things eventually do, release it with gratitude, not bitterness. You didn't lose it. It was never yours to keep. You were its steward, not its owner. And here lies the challenge and the great invitation. Can you hold what you love with open hands? Can you honor what is beautiful without trying to trap it? Can you embrace presence without creating a prison? This is the Stoic's posture, to walk through life knowing that everything borrowed from the world must be returned. Nothing we cherish today is promised tomorrow. Every embrace is finite. Every conversation is the last of its kind. Every moment, once lived, is gone. And far from making life bleak, this awareness makes it sacred. The Stoic does not become indifferent in the face of impermanence. They become more alive, more reverent, more grateful. They do not cling, they consecrate. They do not hoard, they honor. When the end comes, they do not demand a reason. They offer a quiet thank you. For them, loss is not the theft of meaning, but the reminder of it. Gratitude grows stronger, not weaker, in the shadow of endings. Because now, they understand. Everything is a gift, and no gift is ever owed. This awareness softens the Stoic. It strips away entitlement. It replaces grasping with grace. They no longer reach for life with clenched fists, but with an open palm. They do not confuse control with security, nor attachment with affection. They've learned, through loss, through reflection, that gripping harder only makes things slip faster. And when you live that way, you become less brittle, more resilient. You bend with change instead of breaking under it. And that is real strength. In practice, letting go starts with language. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself and the world. Do you say, "I need," when really you mean, "I desire"? Do you say, "This must happen," when you simply hope that it does? These subtle differences reflect deeper truths. They mark the boundary between illusion and reality. When you shift your words, you begin to shift your inner posture. You move from attachment to engagement, from control to cooperation, from fear to flow. And this is where transformation begins, not in grand declarations, but in daily choices, the words you choose, the expectations you drop, the open hands you offer to the present moment. Letting go is not a singular act. It is a way of being, a way of moving through the world with grace instead of grasping. A way of saying, "I trust myself to meet whatever comes and to release whatever goes." This is the essence of Stoic peace, not the absence of care, but the clarity of what is and what never was within your control. Let the rest go. Let the world be, and live free. Chapter 2. The Wisdom of Nature. The Stoics believed in aligning with nature, not just with the external beauty of forests and stars, but with the deeper, universal pattern of how things come into being, change form, and fade away. To them, nature was not a collection of scenery, it was a teacher, a mirror, a constant, patient reminder that nothing is fixed, nothing is guaranteed, and nothing truly belongs to us. The nature of life itself is transition, impermanence, flow. Nature does not cling. It does not protest the falling of the leaf or resist the passage of time. It transitions, it moves. It allows each form to serve its time, and then it lets it go. The flower blooms and wilts. The tree grows, bends, and eventually returns to the soil. There is no shame in ending. There is no outrage at change. There is simply movement, and there is peace in that rhythm. A leaf falls, a season ends, a storm rises and passes. The river carves its way through stone, not by force, but through consistency and time. Nothing in nature resists its role in the rhythm of the whole. Nothing demands permanence or complains of impermanence. Only the human mind does that. Only we interrupt the natural flow with stories about how it should have gone, how long it should have lasted, how it wasn't supposed to end. When life hurts, it is often because we are out of sync with this natural rhythm. We want winter to behave like summer. We want the calm to remain forever without interruption. We want people to stay even when it's time for them to go. We want death to reverse itself, endings to become beginnings, and outcomes to obey our preferences. But nature does not flinch at change. It embraces it as part of its essence. It transforms not because it must, but because it knows that transformation is the only constant. The Stoic trains themselves to do the same. They observe the world not to escape it, but to understand how to live in harmony with it. They say, if something ends, it was meant to. If someone leaves, they were never truly mine to keep. If a door closes, it is because the path it led to has run its course. This is not resignation. This is not despair. It is wisdom, clear, calm, and courageous. It is the art of seeing the deeper flow beneath appearances, the undercurrent beneath the surface noise. The Stoic does not beg for permanence. They prepare for transition. Living in alignment with nature means no longer fearing the inevitable. It means learning to ride the wave rather than fight the tide. And this shift can begin in small moments, watching the way day becomes night, how the body ages, how conversations naturally rise and fall. We begin to notice everything is always in motion, and peace does not come from halting the motion, but from dancing with it. To live like this, cultivate a daily meditation on impermanence. Sit in stillness and contemplate what has changed in your life. What have you outgrown? What has passed? What once felt essential but no longer defines you? In this practice, there is no sorrow, there is honor, there is grace. Practice gratitude not just for what you have, but for what you once had and have now lost. Do not only cherish what remains, cherish what came and left, what taught you and moved on. Remind yourself that the value was never in the permanence, it was in the presence. It was in the fact that it existed at all, the time shared, the experience given, the moment lived. Those things do not require forever to be sacred. They only require our full attention while they last. This is why the Stoic's gratitude is not naive. It is grounded. It does not rely on guarantees. It does not say, I will be thankful as long as nothing changes. It says, I will be thankful because everything changes. That's why Epictetus could write, with so much strength and so much softness, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. That is not passivity. That is inner mastery. And when you walk with this mindset, your entire relationship with life changes. You no longer argue with reality. You no longer brace against what is natural. You flow. You let go when it is time. You hold lightly. You move with things as they move through you. And slowly, quietly, you find a calm that does not depend on what stays, but on your ability to bless what leaves. This is the wisdom of nature. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is constant, silent, profound, and it is always available to those who are willing to look, to listen, and to learn. Chapter 3. Resisting reality is a form of suffering. When we resist what is, we suffer twice. First, from the pain itself. Second, from our refusal to let it be. Pain may knock once, but resistance opens the door again and again, replaying the wound until it becomes a pattern. What hurts us is often less the event itself and more our insistence that it should not have occurred. The Stoics knew this intimately. Life to them was not sanitized of heartbreak, loss, betrayal, or injustice. These things were not exceptions to the rule. They were the rule. They were not glitches in the system, but integral threads in the fabric of reality. And yet, most suffering arises not because of these hardships, but because we mentally protest them. We say, "This shouldn't have happened," or "I can't believe this is real." And in that protest, the mind becomes its own executioner. It loops, it rewinds, it adds layers of judgment to already raw emotion. The Stoic practice is to interrupt that loop, to realign perception with reality, not with resignation, but with resolve. The Stoic asks, "What is true here?" and then responds, not reacts. They say, "This is what happened. Now, what will I do with it?" They do not ask, "Why me?" because they already understand. It was always going to be someone. And if it is now them, then they are invited not to collapse, but to confront, to step into the role of responder, not victim. This mindset removes the poison from pain. Resistance adds layers: anger, denial, bitterness, self-pity. Acceptance distills the pain back to its essence, raw, real, but now workable. It frees up the energy that was once trapped in protest and diverts it into adaptation, grace, even gratitude. It allows for action, even in suffering. It creates space for healing, even in heartbreak. It does not mean you feel nothing. It does not require you to be unshaken or immune to sadness. The Stoic is not emotionless. They are emotionally disciplined. They do not deny grief. They allow it. But they do not drown in it. They observe the waves as they pass, knowing that no emotion, however strong, is permanent unless we chain ourselves to it. You can feel sorrow without building a house in it. You can feel anger without making it your identity. You can feel loss and still decide not to let it define the rest of your life. The Stoic knows that emotions are weather, temporary, shifting, and natural. What matters is how you prepare for them and how you endure them. So the next time something unwelcome arises, an insult, a loss, a betrayal, pause, step back. Ask yourself, what exactly am I resisting here? Is it the thing itself, or my thoughts about the thing? Often it is our mental story, the idea that this event is unfair, that it ruins everything, that we cannot go on, that turns pain into paralysis. This question, simple but sharp, can pierce the illusion. It can break the trance of victimhood. It can return you to the present, where reality lives, where choice still exists, where freedom is found. It returns you to what the Stoics called prohairesis, your capacity to choose your internal response regardless of external events. In that presence, you will notice something powerful. Reality rarely breaks us. It is our resistance to it that does. Reality, in its unfiltered state, is often painful but bearable. What makes it unbearable is the added burden of, "It shouldn't be this way." And here lies the Stoics' quiet superpower, the ability to see life as it is, not as they wish it would be. They do not decorate pain with delusion. They do not delay peace with denial. They face what is hard, not with bitterness, but with presence. And presence, unlike resistance, does not multiply suffering. It softens it. To be a Stoic is to say, "Yes, this hurts, and yet I remain. Yes, I would have chosen otherwise, and yet I will meet what has come." This is not weakness. This is not surrender. This is wisdom in motion. It is what makes healing possible. In the end, suffering is not proof that life is broken. It is proof that we are alive. But how long we suffer, how deeply we identify with the pain, that is within our power. Pain may visit, but we decide whether it unpacks its bags and stays. Let your suffering be a visitor, not your landlord. Greet it, listen to it, learn from it, and then, when the time is right, invite it to leave. That is the Stoic way. Chapter 4. The Grace of Acceptance. Acceptance is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is not a shrug of defeat or a passive surrender to fate. It is an act of clear-eyed courage. It is standing face to face with life, however unrecognizable, painful, or different from what you imagined, and saying, "I will meet you as you are." It is the strength to greet reality without needing it to change first. It is choosing truth over illusion, presence over fantasy. This is one of the hardest disciplines in Stoic practice. Because the ego, our small, frightened, controlling self, wants to fight. It wants to rewrite the past, relitigate the injustice, rearrange what has already happened. It wants to argue with time, to demand a different version of events. It wants vengeance for what hurt and certainty for what's to come. It wants to return to what was lost, even if it was never truly ours to keep. But the Stoic soul sees further. It understands that no amount of protest can undo the past, that grieving is natural, but clinging is optional. It knows that holding on is not loyalty, but delay, and delay keeps us in emotional limbo, no longer where we were, yet not fully where we are. The Stoic understands that peace does not come from rewriting the past, but from releasing the grip we have on it. Acceptance is not passive, it is fiercely active. It is the decision to stop feeding the fire of resentment, to stop pouring energy into what cannot be changed. It is the courage to step out of the story that keeps you stuck and return to the truth that can set you free. It is the wisdom to recognize that life, in all its mystery and cruelty and wonder, moves forward, whether we resist or not. And it is the strength to choose to move with it. To accept is not to say, "This is good," but to say, "This is what is." It is the humility to say, "I do not understand this, I do not like this, but I will face it with grace." It is the wisdom to admit, "This is beyond me, and I do not need to control it in order to continue." This is not defeat, it is maturity. It is a powerful surrender, the kind that opens the heart instead of hardening it. When you lose something dear, a person you love, a version of yourself, a future you hoped for, practice this. Close your eyes and breathe. Slow your thoughts. Place your hand over your heart and repeat silently, "This too belongs. I do not need to understand it yet. I only need to accept that it has come." This phrase is not a spell. It does not take away pain, but it invites you to stop resisting it, to sit with it, to honor it, to let it pass through you instead of defining you. It creates a stillness in which healing can begin. Do not force meaning. Do not rush to make sense of what hurts. Meaning is not always instant. It does not always arrive wrapped in clarity. Sometimes it whispers after the storm, not during it. Sometimes you do not find meaning. You make it slowly, by how you live in the aftermath. You craft it from courage, from kindness, from the quiet decision to keep going when you could have given up. And sometimes, the only clarity we are granted is this: it happened, and now I must rise. There is grace in that sentence. There is strength in those 7 words. Not the kind of strength that roars, but the kind that endures, that continues, that refuses to be broken by what it cannot change. To accept is to walk forward without needing to carry the wreckage. To say, "This chapter is over, and though it left marks on me, it will not become the whole book." It is the courage to turn the page, even if your hands are still trembling. This is what the Stoics call living in agreement with nature. Not nature as serenity, but nature as reality, as the flow of life itself. You stop demanding different outcomes. You stop bargaining with the past. You start honoring the moment as it is. And in doing so, something remarkable happens. You begin to return to yourself. Not the self you were before the loss, but the self that has been tempered by it. A quieter, wiser, more compassionate self. A self that knows peace is not found in control, but in presence. That is the grace of acceptance. That is the gift the Stoics point us toward. Not a life without pain, but a life where pain no longer owns us, where our peace is not dependent on perfection, where our spirit remains intact, even when the world does not. Chapter 5. Letting go is an act of strength. Many confuse letting go with weakness, as if it means surrendering, walking away, or giving up, as if it means you didn't care deeply enough or weren't strong enough to hold on. But the truth is the opposite. Letting go requires a kind of strength that holding on often does not. It asks for clarity over comfort, courage over familiarity, and faith over fear. It is not an act of escape, it is an act of maturity. It takes strength to walk away from what no longer serves your growth, to loosen your grip on something that once defined you, to acknowledge that something once beautiful has reached its natural end. It takes a quiet kind of bravery to stop chasing what has become a shadow and to stand still in the presence of uncertainty. It takes spiritual muscle to resist the urge to run back to what is known, even if it no longer nourishes you. It takes even more strength to release someone who cannot or will not meet you with the same presence, honesty, or depth that you offer them. Not out of bitterness or revenge, but out of self-respect, out of love for what your heart deserves. To say, "This hurts, but I will not abandon myself to hold on to what is slipping away," is to choose alignment over attachment. It also takes strength to admit that a dream has changed, that the path you were once excited to walk now feels hollow, that the identity you wore proudly no longer fits the person you are becoming. To stop clinging to old roles, old stories, old timelines, and to step into the unknown with open hands is one of the greatest acts of Stoic courage. The Stoic practices letting go not with anger, but with awareness. They do not curse the door that closed. They understand that everything has its hour, and some doors are only meant to open once. They do not stand frozen in front of what has ended, begging it to return. Instead, they turn their gaze toward what is next, not because it is easy, but because it is right. Their dignity is not found in controlling outcomes, but in controlling their attitude toward them. They do not define strength by what they hold on to, but by how they carry themselves through change. Letting go is not forgetting. It is remembering without being haunted. It is loving without becoming dependent. It is grieving with movement. It is saying, "This mattered deeply to me, and still, I will not let it cage my spirit." You do not dishonor the past by releasing it. You honor it by acknowledging its place and not forcing it to be more than it was. Letting go is not the absence of love. It is the maturation of love, love that no longer needs to possess in order to appreciate, grief that no longer needs to consume in order to be felt, pain that no longer needs to direct your next step to be acknowledged. To let go is not to erase. It is to carry forward what is meaningful and to leave behind what is no longer life-giving. In practical terms, let go through small, deliberate rituals. Write a letter you never send. Give yourself permission to say what needs saying without needing it to be heard. Light a candle and release a name. Walk through a place that reminds you of what was and whisper, "Thank you, I set you down now." Speak words you never expect to hear back. Stand still, take a deep breath, and say, "I release this, not because I didn't love, but because I did, and I choose to love myself enough to move on." Letting go does not mean the pain disappears. It means the pain no longer dictates your direction. It no longer holds the map. It no longer gets to tell you what you are allowed to become. The ache may remain, but it softens. It no longer binds you to the past. It becomes something you carry with reverence, not with regret. The Stoic lets go as an act of inner alignment, not to escape discomfort, but to return to their center. They do not abandon responsibility, they reclaim it. They choose to live not in reaction to what is gone, but in harmony with what remains. And in that choice there is real freedom. In that release there is real power. Because letting go is not losing, it is choosing. It is choosing peace over illusion, growth over nostalgia, truth over control. Let go, not because you are weak, but because you are finally strong enough to. Chapter 6. Pain is not the problem. Pain is not the enemy. It is not a punishment, nor is it always a signal that something has gone wrong. Pain is part of the human contract. To live is to hurt sometimes. To grow is to be stretched. To care is to open yourself to the possibility of loss. Even to hope is to risk disappointment. The Stoics did not seek to eliminate pain. That would be to seek the impossible. Instead, they sought to understand it, to reframe it, to place it where it belongs, not as a curse, but as a companion, a visitor, a quiet messenger in the shaping of the soul. Pain, for the Stoic, is not avoided, it is studied. It is examined with calm and curiosity. It is listened to with care. They do not flinch from discomfort, because they know that some truths only come dressed in suffering. Some strength is only revealed when everything else falls away. There are insights buried in pain that comfort could never offer. When pain arrives, the Stoic does not panic. They breathe, they ask, "Why are you here? What part of me needs to grow in order to meet you?" This is the turning point, when pain becomes not just something we endure, but something we learn from, because it is not always the pain that breaks us. It's our story about the pain, the belief that it shouldn't be happening, the fear that it will never end, the assumption that it makes us weak. But what if pain is not a sign of failure, but of aliveness, of evolution? What if pain is not the villain, but the invitation? The real suffering begins when we turn pain into identity, when we hold on to it longer than necessary, when we say, "This happened to me," and forget to add, "and I'm still becoming." Pain is meant to pass through us like weather, not to become the architecture of our lives. The Stoic allows it to pass. They do not suppress it, nor do they dramatize it. They experience it with honesty, but they also contain it. They feel deeply, but they do not drown. They hurt, but they also heal. They do not wear their pain as armor or as decoration. They carry it like a lesson, not a legacy. And here's the paradox. By facing pain directly, we loosen its grip. When we stop running from it, we stop being ruled by it. When we stop fearing it, we start transforming it. Pain, when seen clearly, can be a path, a sacred teacher, a revealer of our attachments, illusions, and hidden expectations. It shows us where we are still clutching, still resisting, still afraid to surrender to the truth of impermanence. It can illuminate the places within us that are still asking for approval, still avoiding vulnerability, still seeking permanence in a world built on change. Pain can reveal the falsehoods we've told ourselves about what we need, about who we are, about what control we think we have. But it only offers these revelations if we're willing to look directly at it, not to flinch, not to numb, but to listen. The Stoic does not waste their life waiting for pain to disappear. They do not stall their purpose until the feeling passes. They do not bargain with fate. They accept what is, and they work within it. They say, "This hurts. But while I am hurting, I will also be learning. I will also be living. I will also be becoming." So next time pain arrives, try something different. Try not to rush to fix it. Let go of the panic that it must be resolved immediately. Sit with it. Name it. Ask it, "What are you trying to show me that I have not yet been willing to see?" Let it burn away your illusions. Illusions of control, of permanence, of immunity. Let it strip you of what no longer serves. Let it reorder your values. Let it ask you the hard questions. Who are you without this thing you lost? What matters now? Who do you choose to become, even with this ache? In this way, pain stops being a wall and becomes a threshold. It stops being an obstacle and becomes a mirror. You start to see not just what hurts, but who you are becoming through it. You begin to rise from the ashes with more clarity, more humility, more strength. Pain, embraced with awareness, becomes sacred ground. True peace, then, is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of strength within it. It is the steadiness that says, "Yes, this hurts, but I do not crumble." It is the quiet voice that says, "I am not my suffering. I am the one who endures it." It is the understanding that life may break us open, but what flows from that opening can be wisdom, not weakness; compassion, not collapse; grace, not grievance. This is Stoic strength, not invulnerability, but invincibility of spirit; not escaping life's suffering, but meeting it with dignity and depth. It is the ability to say, "I let the world be, even when it wounds me. I let the pain come, and I do not let it harden me. I walk forward, not because I am unhurt, but because I am unwavering." That is what it means to suffer well. That is what it means to grow through fire. That is what it means to let go and still live. Chapter 7. The Power of Stillness. In a world constantly demanding noise, motion, and reaction, stillness is an act of defiance. The Stoic does not chase every ripple in the current. They do not leap at every sound or mirror every movement. They remain still, not out of apathy, but out of focus. Stillness is their strategy, their sanctuary, their strength. Stillness is not laziness, it is not disinterest, it is clarity, it is composure in the face of chaos. It is the quiet pause before the wise response. The Stoic understands that movement without direction is distraction, that reaction without reflection is weakness, and so they cultivate the rare and radical art of inner stillness. Stillness is not the absence of activity, it is the absence of scatteredness. It is presence. It is a full return to the moment, where nothing is pulled from the past or worried from the future. In stillness, the Stoic hears the truth beneath the noise. They watch their impulses rise and fall without obeying them. They observe the world without rushing to interfere with it. This discipline of stillness allows for better judgment. It creates space for perspective. When others are swept up in fear, outrage, or urgency, the Stoic remains grounded. They choose when to speak, when to move, when to engage. They are not baited by every provocation. They are not hijacked by every emotion. In stillness, they protect their power. Stillness is the moment between the spark and the fire. It is the breath before the arrow flies. It is the silence before the decision. And the one who learns to inhabit that space becomes a master of their own fate. They do not live reactively. They live intentionally. In your own life, carve out moments of stillness. Before responding, pause. Before deciding, breathe. Let your reactions settle. Let your thoughts clear. Create space. In that space, wisdom rises. In that silence, your true voice can speak. This is where the Stoic lives, not in noise, but in depth, not in haste, but in truth. Stillness is not the escape from life. It is the doorway into it. The world may swirl and spin, but within the Stoic, there is a center that holds. And in that still point, they find their power. They find their peace. They let the world be and remain unshaken within it. Chapter 8. Freedom through detachment. The Stoics spoke often of detachment, but not as coldness or indifference. Detachment for them was not a rejection of emotion or love, but a deep respect for the nature of things. It was the wisdom of loving what is without needing it to remain. It was the discipline of holding joy without fear and meeting loss without collapse. Detachment is not a void, it is a vantage point. To be detached does not mean to withdraw from life. It means to step back far enough to see clearly. It is to engage without clinging, to commit without control, to love without dependency. When the Stoic practices detachment, they do not become numb, they become wise. They realize that everything they love will change, and they choose to love it anyway. This freedom through detachment allows the Stoic to experience life more deeply, not less. They are not distracted by anxiety about what might be lost, nor paralyzed by the fear of change. They are present, precisely because they do not try to trap what is fleeting. They understand that the tighter you grip, the more fragile everything becomes. To practice detachment is to walk through the world with open hands, to let what comes, come, and what goes, go. It is not avoidance, it is trust. Trust that what is meant for you will stay as long as it's supposed to. Trust that your peace is not held hostage by circumstance. In practical terms, detachment can look like choosing not to argue over what cannot be changed. It can mean releasing your need for closure from someone who will not give it. It can mean pursuing your goals without attaching your worth to the result. It is the art of investing effort, but not ego. The Stoic reminds themselves daily, I can enjoy this, but I do not own it. I can cherish this, but I am not entitled to its permanence, and from this reminder grows resilience, the ability to love fiercely without falling apart when the form of that love changes. True detachment is not isolation, it is freedom. It is the freedom to feel, to act, and to live without being ruled by fear or fixation. It is the freedom to participate in life fully, knowing that you will still be whole, even when what you love transforms or departs. This is how the Stoic lives, not hardened, but clear, not disconnected, but grounded. They walk forward with an open heart and an untethered spirit. They do not need to force the world to stay a certain way. They let the world be, and they remain free within it. Chapter 9. The Strength to Begin Again. The Stoic does not measure their life by what has ended, but by what they are willing to begin again. Endings are inevitable, projects fail, relationships shift, identities dissolve, plans unravel, people change, dreams die quiet deaths. But what defines the Stoic is not their ability to prevent these closures. It is their refusal to let them be final. They do not confuse failure with finality. They do not mistake a chapter's close for the end of the book. They understand that to live is to begin again, often many times in one lifetime. To begin again is not to erase what was lost or to pretend that it didn't matter. It is to acknowledge it fully, to honor what once was, and still choose to move forward with an open heart. It is to carry the lessons, the scars, the moments, and to use that wisdom to build something stronger, truer, more aligned with who you have become. The Stoic does not deny the pain of the past, but neither do they become its prisoner. They let the wound breathe, but not define. They let the memory live, but not lead. They know that healing is not a return to who they were, but a sacred process of transformation into someone wiser, someone more compassionate, someone more complete. Beginnings are hard. They demand courage, not because you are promised success, but because you are willing to move anyway, despite the void of guarantees. To begin again is to walk into uncertainty with bare hands. It is to lift your foot into a space where the path is no longer visible and say, "Still, I will walk." It is not the strength of knowing. It is the strength of showing up without it. This is not weakness. This is what bravery looks like when no one is watching. Beginnings require vulnerability, the kind that comes after you've been cut open and are still willing to love, still willing to dream, to try again after failure, to believe again after betrayal, to risk again after disappointment. It is the decision to re-engage with life without the armor of cynicism, without the protection of distance. To begin again is to be tender and courageous at once. And the Stoic does not see this as weakness, they see it as discipline. The discipline to not let fear make you small. They are not seeking perfection, they are committed to motion. They do not ask, will this work out? They ask, what's the next right step I can take? They are not frozen by uncertainty. They are moved by clarity, that life must be lived forward, and living forward sometimes means stumbling, rebuilding, trying again. The Stoic says, if the path has ended, I will find another. If the door is closed, I will knock elsewhere. If I am emptied, I will begin the slow, humble work of refilling, drop by drop, breath by breath, day by day. The strength to begin again lies not in eliminating fear, but in continuing anyway. It is not about being fearless. It is about being faithful to the path despite the fear. It is not bravado or blind confidence. It is quiet resolve, a determination that does not need applause or proof. It is the willingness to stay in the game of life, even when you feel like you're limping, even when your heart is bruised and your faith is shaking. It is the steadiness that says, I will not give up on the possibility of better, not because it is guaranteed, but because I refuse to let this be the end of me. This is not delusion. This is not denial. This is earned hope, the kind of hope that's grown inside the storm, watered by grief, and shaped by every moment you chose not to quit. It is the quiet knowing that if you can hurt and still love, fall and still rise, lose and still try, then there is something in you the world has not taken, and that is sacred. In daily practice, beginning again rarely comes as an explosion. It comes as a whisper. It often looks like small, almost invisible acts of self-respect. Rewriting a dream on paper after the old one died. Sitting with your journal instead of your regrets. Forgiving someone who never gave you the apology because you deserve the peace they could not give. Taking a walk instead of sinking into despair. Choosing a green smoothie over shame. Or sitting in complete stillness and saying to yourself, today I will not unravel. Sometimes beginning again is nothing more than getting out of bed when your soul feels heavy, when your limbs ache from the weight of sadness and your breath feels like labor, when the thought of the day ahead feels like a mountain you're not ready to climb, when your spirit is quiet, distant, perhaps even skeptical. You do the simplest things, the things no one notices, but that make all the difference. You open the curtains and let the light touch your face. You pour a glass of water like it's a sacred ritual. You stretch your body not to conquer anything, but just to feel yourself still here. You sit on the edge of the bed and whisper, not loudly, not confidently, but with trembling truth. I'm not done yet. This is not grand, this is not glamorous, but it is sacred. It is the quiet heroism of the wounded, choosing not to surrender. The Stoic does not romanticize suffering, but they do recognize the power hidden inside these humble restarts. They do not wait for the miracle moment or the dramatic transformation. They honor the subtle moment, the one where the soul, despite everything, says yes again to life. They understand that sometimes courage wears the face of fatigue, that sometimes beginning again looks like simply not giving up. They do not demand a cinematic rebirth. They do not require fireworks or epiphanies. They trust the quiet, steady return. They know that true healing doesn't announce itself. It unfolds slowly. It looks like brushing your teeth through tears. It looks like cooking dinner when grief still lives in your chest. It looks like saying yes to things you once avoided, like answering messages again, stepping outside again, believing in your body again. The Stoic knows repetition is its own kind of redemption. One quiet act of care repeated with dignity, becomes a ritual of resurrection. They understand that healing is often mundane, that the body remembers before the mind does, that the smallest acts, showers, journaling, walking, reaching out, become seeds of a new beginning. So they plant them, not because they feel strong, but because they choose to be loyal to the process of becoming strong again. The Stoic praises the restart, not because it's bold or beautiful, but because it's real, because it takes everything to begin again when everything still hurts. This is what it means to rise after the fall, not to erase the pain or dismiss the past, but to refuse to let it dictate the rest of your story. To say, yes, I was broken. Yes, I bled. Yes, it almost ended me. And still, I choose to stand. To look at the wreckage and instead of turning away, to walk through it and gather what remains. To collect the pieces and say, these are still mine. I will build with them again. To let your past inform you, but not imprison you. To take your scars and make them signals, not shame. To begin again, not because you're healed, but because healing happens in the trying. To begin again is not a denial of pain. It is the most powerful affirmation of possibility. It says, I still believe something good can come from me. It is the recognition that your soul, though bruised, still contains something bright. That though you may walk slower now, you are still walking. That though your voice may tremble, it still speaks. That though you carry grief, you are also capable of joy. And that is a holy contradiction. It is a declaration that even if life has changed you, it has not erased you. That there is still something unbroken inside you, something noble, something fierce, something quiet but ready, something worth showing up for, and in that you reclaim your power, not by force, but by faith. Faith in the quiet process of becoming whole again. Faith that beginning again, even here, even now, is enough. That is Stoic resilience, not loud, not celebrated, not always understood, but real, alive, living in the breath between sobs, in the stillness before dawn, in the heartbeat that says, we try again. The strength to begin again is not just the strength to rebuild a life, it is the strength to believe in one, to believe in peace, even after chaos, to believe in tomorrow, even after ruin, to believe in yourself, not because you feel strong, but because you choose to act as though you are. That is the strength that saves souls. That is the strength that keeps the flame lit. That is the strength that quietly, steadily begins again. Chapter 10. Let the world be and be at peace within it. The Stoics' final lesson is not withdrawal from the world, but harmony within it. Not isolation, but integration. They do not seek to escape the chaos of life. They seek to remain calm in the center of it, to walk among the noise, the loss, the change, and remain grounded, steady, clear. They let the world be what it is, and they become who they must. There is great freedom in this. To stop arguing with reality, to stop expecting the world to bend to your preferences, to stop demanding that others behave, respond, or love in the ways you imagined. When the Stoic says, let the world be, they are not giving up. They are rising above. They are making the boldest choice to center peace where there is no guarantee of comfort. Letting the world be does not mean passive acceptance of injustice. It means recognizing what is yours to carry and what is not. It is to see clearly the limits of your influence and to work fiercely, compassionately within them. It is to let go of control over what cannot be controlled and to pour all your strength into mastering what can. The Stoic knows that life is a swirling river of gain and loss, of birth and ending. They do not grip the current, they navigate it, they swim, they float, they endure. Sometimes they fight the tide, sometimes they surrender to it, but always with awareness, always with choice. When someone leaves, The Stoic says, "They were never mine to keep." When something ends, they say, "This too had its time." When uncertainty comes, they say, "Let me meet it with stillness." And in these responses, they reclaim their life. Because to argue with reality is to suffer, but to align with it, to say, "Let it be and let me meet it well," is to enter a kind of peace the world cannot give and cannot take away. This peace is not passivity, it is presence, it is power, it is the strength to rise without resentment, to begin without bitterness, to forgive without forgetting. It is the decision to live fully, not because life is easy, but because you are free. Letting the world be is not giving up on change. It is committing to change from the inside out. It is becoming a model of the peace you wish others would embody. It is being a light in darkness, not by denying the dark, but by refusing to become it. So the Stoic walks with their head high, not because the path is smooth, but because their spirit is anchored. They let the world spin, and they move through it slowly, mindfully, rooted in reason, centered in virtue. They do not need everything to make sense. They only need to remain aligned with their purpose. To live like this is not a denial of life's difficulty. It is a masterful acceptance of it. And in that acceptance, there is more joy than in all the false comforts of denial. There is clarity, there is compassion, there is freedom. This is the Stoic's final teaching. Let the world be and be unshaken within it. Not untouched, but unmoved in your resolve. Not immune, but unbroken in your commitment to live with strength, to choose virtue, to keep showing up. Let the world be and live with peace. That is how the Stoic endures. That is how they rise. That is how they are free.